The night shift at Luna Station was usually quiet. Commander Jake Morrison sat in his chair watching the screens that showed empty space. For 200 years, nothing dangerous had come from the stars. Earth was peaceful now. Wars were old, stories that people read about in history books. Jake yawned and looked at the clock. 3 a.m, only 5 more hours until his shift ended. He could go back to his small apartment and sleep until noon. Life was simple on Luna Station. Monitor the deep space radio signals, write reports, and go home. Nothing ever happened. Lisa, Parker, worked at the station next to him. She was the best communication officer on Luna Station. Her job was to listen for signals from other planets and spaceships. Most days she only heard the natural sounds of space. Stars made noise. Gas clouds made noise. But intelligent life was rare. "Jake, come look at this," Lisa said suddenly. Her voice was different, worried. Jake got up and walked over to her station. The screens showed strange patterns, numbers and symbols that moved across the display in waves. "What is it?" he asked. "I don't know yet, but it's not natural. Something made this signal on purpose." Lisa's fingers moved quickly over her keyboard. She was trying to clean up the signal and make it clearer. The signal was very weak. It came from far away, much farther than any human ship had ever traveled. Lisa worked for 20 minutes adjusting settings and running the signal through different programs. Slowly, the random noise began to form patterns. "It's math," she said with excitement. "Look, these numbers are prime numbers, and this sequence here is pi. Whatever sent this knows mathematics the same way we do." Jake felt his heart beat faster. In all of human history, they had never received a signal from alien intelligence. Scientists had looked for such signals for hundreds of years, and now, on a quiet night shift, they might have found one. "How far away is it coming from?" Jake asked. Lisa checked her instruments. "The Kepler 442 system, about 1,200 light-years from Earth." She paused and looked at Jake with wide eyes. "This signal is 1,200 years old. Whatever sent it happened when humans were still fighting with swords." They worked together for the next hour. Jake called Dr. Ryan Clark, the chief scientist on Luna Station. Dr. Clark was an expert in alien languages and old human history. He arrived. Within 30 minutes, still wearing his pajamas but fully awake. Dr. Clark studied the signal patterns on the screen. He ran them through translation programs that could work with any logical language. The computer tried thousands of different approaches. Finally, after 2 hours of work, words began to appear on the screen. The first complete sentence made them all go silent. "We are the Valdari. This is our final message to the galaxy." More text appeared as the translation program worked. The message was long and detailed. Jake read it aloud as it came through. "Our world is dying. The harvesters have found us. These machines have destroyed 27 civilizations before us. They consume all life and take our knowledge for themselves. We cannot stop them." The message included star charts and technical data. The Valdari had sent everything they knew about the enemy, details about harvester ships, their weapons, and their methods of attack. It was like reading a battle report from a war that happened 1,200 years ago. They move from system to system. Jake continued reading. "They take everything and leave nothing alive. Planets become empty rocks. The harvesters are heading toward your part of the galaxy. We calculate they will reach the Sol system in 18 months from when you receive this message." Dr. Clark sat down heavily in a chair. 18 months, he said quietly. "If this signal is 1,200 years old, then the harvesters are coming now. They could already be on their way." Lisa was working with the star charts that came with the message. She projected them onto the main screen. Red dots showed systems where the harvesters had attacked. A line showed their path through space. The line pointed directly at Earth. "We need to call Admiral Sullivan," Jake said. Kate Sullivan was retired, living on Mars in a small house with her garden. But she was the last person alive who really understood military operations. She had commanded ships during humanity's last war, 200 years ago. Dr. Clark nodded. "Wake her up. She needs to see this immediately." While Lisa sent the emergency message to Mars, Jake continued reading the alien transmission. The Valdari described the harvesters as perfect killing machines. They had been asleep somewhere in deep space for thousands of years. Something had woken them up, and now they were consuming everything in their path. Each civilization they destroy makes them stronger, Jake read. They learn new technologies and new ways to fight. The harvesters that destroyed us are not the same machines that began this campaign. They have grown more dangerous with each victory. The transmission included images. Jake's stomach turned as he looked at them. Harvester ships were massive geometric shapes that seemed to bend light around them. They moved in perfect formations, like a school of metal fish in the darkness of space. Cities on destroyed worlds were nothing but empty holes in the ground. 2 hours later, Admiral Sullivan's face appeared on the communication screen. She looked older than Jake remembered, but her eyes were still sharp and alert. "Show me everything," she said without greeting them. They transmitted all the data to her. Sullivan studied the star charts and technical information for a long time. Her face grew more serious as she read. "How long do we have?" she asked finally. "If the Valdari calculations are correct, 18 months, Dr. Clark answered. Sullivan was quiet for several minutes. Jake could see her thinking, calculating possibilities in her head. When she spoke again, her voice was different. It was the voice of a military commander, not a retired old woman. "I need you to do something for me," she said. "Go to the restricted archives and look up Project Sleeping Dragon. Authorization code Sullivan Alpha 779. Find me the locations of all the old ships." Jake felt confused. "Admiral, the old warships were all decommissioned. Most of them were scrapped for metal." Sullivan smiled, but it was not a pleasant smile. "No, Commander, they were not scrapped. We hid them. All of them. The most dangerous warships humanity ever built are still out there, waiting in the dark. We're going to need every single one." The screen went black as Sullivan ended the transmission. Jake, Lisa, and Dr. Clark sat in silence, processing what they had learned. An ancient enemy was coming to destroy Earth. Humanity's peaceful civilization was about to face the greatest threat in their history. But somewhere in the darkness around their solar system, humanity's deadliest weapons were sleeping, waiting to be awakened. Ships built for war by a species that had once been the most feared fighters in known space. The quiet night shift was over. The war was about to begin. 3 days after the alien message, Admiral Kate Sullivan stood in the war room deep inside Luna Station. The room had not been used for 200 years. Dust covered the tables and chairs. The old computer systems hummed to life slowly, like giant animals waking from a long sleep. Jake Morrison helped carry boxes of files from the restricted archives. Each box was marked with warning signs and classification codes. Dr. Ryan Clark opened the first box and pulled out thick folders filled with ship blueprints and location coordinates. "Project Sleeping Dragon," Sullivan said, reading from an old document. "When humanity achieved peace, we faced a difficult choice. Do we destroy our warships or keep them? The government decided to hide them instead." Lisa Parker looked at the star charts spread across the table. Red dots marked locations throughout the solar system: Jupiter's moons, the asteroid belt, Saturn's rings, and the dark space beyond Neptune. Each dot represented a hidden warship. "How many ships are we talking about?" Jake asked. Sullivan smiled grimly. 847 capital ships, 3,000 support vessels. Enough firepower to destroy every planet in this solar system twice over. The first ship they decided to find was the UES Vengeance. According to the files, it was hiding near Europa, one of Jupiter's moons. The ship was a dreadnought, over a kilometer long and armed with weapons that could crack small moons in half. Captain Sam Mitchell got the call while he was teaching history at Mars University. He was one of the few people alive who had actually served on a warship. At 70 years old, he thought his military days were over. But when Admiral Sullivan explained the situation, he packed his bags immediately. "I commanded the Vengeance during the Titan War," Mitchell told Jake as they traveled to Jupiter on a fast transport ship. "She's the most beautiful killing machine ever built. Fusion cannons that can hit targets 1,000,000 kilometers away. armor thick enough to survive inside a star. The transport ship reached Europa after 2 days of travel. They used deep space scanners to search the ice and rock around Jupiter's moon. For hours, they found nothing. Then Lisa's instruments detected something unusual, a mass of metal buried deep in Europa's ice. There, Mitchell pointed at the scanner display. Hidden in the ice canyon, just like the old days. They took a small shuttle down to Europa's surface. The moon was covered in thick ice that reflected Jupiter's light. Deep cracks ran across the surface like scars. They followed the coordinates to a canyon that seemed empty. Mitchell pulled out a small device from his pocket. It was an old military beacon, the kind used to activate sleeping ships. He pressed a button and waited. The ice began to crack. Slowly, something massive pushed up from below. Pieces of ice fell away as the UES Vengeance emerged from its hiding place. The ship was enormous dark metal that seemed to absorb light. Its hull was covered in weapon ports and sensor arrays. "Hello, beautiful," Mitchell whispered. They docked with the Vengeance using their shuttle. Inside, the ship was dark and cold. Emergency lights flickered on as they walked through empty corridors. Everything was preserved perfectly, waiting for the day it would be needed again. The bridge was the heart of the ship. Mitchell sat in the captain's chair and placed his hand on a scanner. The ship's computer, called Oracle, recognized him immediately. "Welcome back, Captain Mitchell," a voice said from hidden speakers. "I have been waiting for 203 years, 4 months, and 16 days. Hello, Oracle, we need to wake up the fleet. The war is coming." Oracle began activating the ship's systems. Lights came on throughout the massive vessel. The fusion reactors started up, providing power. For the first time in centuries, weapon systems ran diagnostic checks. The Vengeance was alive again. While Mitchell worked on the Vengeance, Admiral Sullivan sent teams to find other ships. The UES Wrath was hiding in the asteroid belt, disguised as a large rock. Captain Amy Watson found it after 3 days of searching. The ship's camouflage system had worked so well that even their own records were slightly wrong about its location. The UES Fury was buried under the ice of Titan, Saturn's largest moon. Colonel Bill Hayes, who was 85 years old but still sharp, volunteered to command it. He had been a young officer during the last war, and he remembered how to make these old ships fight. Near Neptune, they found the massive carrier UES Domination. This ship was different from the others. Instead of big guns, it carried hundreds of fighter craft. Each fighter was a deadly weapon by itself, fast and armed with missiles that could destroy smaller ships. Dr. Clark made an important discovery while studying the old military files. The ships were not just weapons. They were also libraries. Each ship's computer contained complete records of human military history, tactics, strategies, and battle plans from hundreds of years of warfare. "The people who built these ships knew something we forgot," he explained to the others. "They knew that peace is fragile. They prepared for the day when we might need to fight again." As more ships awakened, Admiral Sullivan faced a new problem. The ships needed crews, but modern humans had never fought a war. They were engineers, scientists, artists, and teachers. None of them knew how to operate weapons or plan battles. "We need to find the right people," Sullivan told her staff. "Not just smart people, but people who can think like warriors." Oracle helped solve this problem. The ship's computer began testing volunteers looking for specific personality traits. It needed people who could make quick decisions under pressure, people who could stay calm when everything was going wrong, people who could do terrible things to save others. The tests were strange. Oracle would put people in simulation rooms and give them impossible choices. Save 100 strangers or save 10 friends. Retreat from a battle you might win or fight a battle you might lose. The computer watched how people reacted and decided who could handle war. Most volunteers failed the tests. They were too peaceful, too kind, too civilized for what was coming. But some passed. These people had something different inside them. A piece of humanity's violent past that had never completely gone away. Jake Morrison was one of the people who passed. Oracle assigned him to the Vengeance as the communications officer. Lisa Parker also passed and became the fleet's main coordinator. Dr. Clark failed the warrior tests, but Oracle found another use for him. His knowledge of alien cultures and languages would be valuable when they faced the harvesters. Within 2 months, they had found and awakened 400 ships. Each vessel was a masterpiece of destructive engineering. But finding the ships was only the beginning. Now they had to remember how to use them. The sleeping dragons were awake, but they still needed to learn how to breathe fire again. 8 months remained before the harvesters would reach Earth. Admiral Sullivan looked at the massive fleet gathering near Mars. 400 warships floated in formation, their dark hulls reflecting the red planet's light. Each ship was powerful, enough to destroy a city, but their crews were still learning how to fight. Captain Mitchell stood on the bridge of the UES Vengeance, watching new recruits struggle with basic combat training. These people were teachers, doctors, and engineers yesterday. Today they were trying to learn how to fire weapons that could burn through solid steel. Oracle, run Simulation 7 again, Mitchell ordered. The bridge transformed into a holographic battle scene. Enemy ships appeared on all sides, firing bright beams of energy. The crew had to work together to survive. They needed to coordinate shields, weapons, and movement while under attack. The simulation lasted 10 minutes. When it ended, half the crew was dead according to the computer. Mitchell shook his head. Better than last time, but not good enough. The harvesters won't give us second chances. Jake Morrison was learning to be a warrior, but it felt wrong. His whole life he had been taught that violence was bad. Now Oracle was teaching him how to destroy enemy ships efficiently. The computer showed him where to aim weapons to cause maximum damage. Hesitation kills, Oracle explained in its calm voice. In battle, the person who acts first usually wins. You must overcome your peaceful instincts. On the UES Fury, Colonel Hayes was training fighter pilots. These small ships were fast and deadly, but they required pilots who could think quickly and take risks. Hayes was old, but his mind was sharp with memories of real combat. Flying a fighter in battle is like dancing with death, he told his students. You must be aggressive but not stupid, brave but not careless. The enemy will try to kill you every second. Dr. Clark made a disturbing discovery while studying the alien data from the Valdari. The harvesters were not just machines. They were learning machines. Each civilization they destroyed taught them new ways to fight. Look at this pattern, he showed Admiral Sullivan on his computer screen. The first civilization they attacked used energy shields for defense. The harvesters learned to penetrate energy shields. The next civilization used armor plating. The harvesters developed weapons that cut through armor. Sullivan studied the data with growing concern. So they adapt to whatever they face? Exactly. By the time they reach us, they will know 27 different ways to fight. They will be prepared for every tactic those civilizations used. This news worried everyone. How could they fight an enemy that had already learned to defeat so many different species? But Oracle had an idea. The harvesters learn from civilizations they conquer, the AI explained. But they have never conquered humanity. Our ways of fighting are still unknown to them. Lisa Parker was working on a different problem. She was trying to contact other species in the galaxy to ask for help. Her powerful radio systems sent messages to dozens of star systems where intelligent life might exist. Most of her messages went unanswered. The few responses she received were not encouraging. Other species had also received the Valdari warning, but they had no military forces. Like humanity, they had abandoned warfare long ago. We are alone, she reported to Admiral Sullivan. No one else has weapons that can fight the harvesters. If we fail, the entire galaxy falls. The training became more intense. Admiral Sullivan ordered the fleet to practice real combat maneuvers. Ships fired their weapons at asteroid targets, learning to hit moving objects at long range. Fighter squadrons practiced attack formations against mock enemy ships. Captain Watson discovered something important during weapons testing. The old human weapons were more powerful than anyone remembered. A single fusion torpedo from the UES Wrath could destroy a ship twice its size. The plasma cannons on the UES Domination could cut through a kilometer of solid rock. These ships were built for total war, she reported. Our ancestors designed them to fight enemies that no longer exist. The weapons are almost too powerful to use safely. Oracle began teaching the crews about psychological warfare. The harvesters were machines, but they still used logic to make decisions. If humans could act in ways that seemed completely illogical, they might confuse the enemy. Machines expect rational behavior, Oracle explained to Jake during a training session. They calculate probabilities and plan for likely actions, but humans can choose to do impossible things. Colonel Hayes demonstrated this concept during a fleet exercise. His fighters were outnumbered 3-1 by enemy drones in the simulation. According to all military logic, he should have retreated. Instead, he ordered his pilots to attack directly, ignoring their own safety. The unexpected aggression confused the computer-controlled enemies. Hayes's fighters destroyed twice as many targets as predicted before being eliminated. It was a costly victory, but it proved that unpredictable tactics could work. Admiral Sullivan made a difficult decision. She ordered the construction of weapons that had been banned for 2 centuries. Gravitational bombs that could collapse small stars, biological weapons that ate through enemy hull materials, antimatter missiles that could destroy entire fleets. These weapons are dangerous to everyone, including us, she told her staff. But the harvesters have conquered 27 civilizations. We need every advantage we can get. Dr. Clark found more information in the Valdari data about harvester weaknesses. The machines worked as a collective intelligence, sharing information instantly across their entire fleet. This made them very efficient, but it also created a vulnerability. If we can disrupt their communication network, they will lose coordination, he explained. Individual harvester ships are powerful, but they depend on the group intelligence to make complex decisions. Oracle began developing special programs to attack harvester computer systems. These were digital weapons, designed to confuse and disable enemy networks. It was like preparing for 2 different wars at the same time. As the months passed, the human crews became more skilled. They learned to work together under pressure. They practiced until their reactions became automatic. But they were still peaceful people at heart, preparing to do terrible things to survive. Jake looked out at the growing fleet and felt both pride and fear. Humanity was remembering how to be warriors, but the cost was high. They were changing, from the peaceful species they had become back into the fighters they used to be. 3 months remained before the harvesters arrived. The fleet was as ready as it could be, but everyone knew that all their preparation might not be enough. They were about to face an enemy that had never lost a battle. The sleeping dragons had learned to breathe fire again. Soon they would discover if their flames were hot enough to burn the machines that consumed worlds. The harvesters arrived on a Tuesday morning, 2 weeks earlier than predicted. Long-range sensors detected them at the edge of the solar system, emerging from hyperspace in perfect geometric formations. Their ships were massive triangular shapes that seemed to bend light around their edges, making them difficult to see clearly. Admiral Sullivan stood in the command center on Luna Station, watching the enemy fleet approach. 300 harvester vessels moved toward the inner solar system with mechanical precision. Each ship was larger than humanity's biggest dreadnought, and their weapons were already charging for battle. "All ships, this is Admiral Sullivan," she broadcast to the human fleet. "The enemy has arrived. Take your positions. Remember your training. Fight with honor, and fight to win." Captain Mitchell felt his heart pound as the UES Vengeance moved into battle formation near Mars. Around him, 400 human warships, prepared for the greatest battle in their species' history. The crews were nervous but determined. They had trained for this moment for 8 months. The first engagement happened near the asteroid belt. Colonel Hayes led a squadron of fighters from the UES domination against harvester scout ships. The enemy vessels moved with perfect coordination, firing energy beams that could melt through titanium armor. But Hayes had learned something important during training. The harvesters fought logically, using tactics that made mathematical sense. Humans could do things that made no sense at all. "All fighters follow my lead," Hayes commanded. Instead of using standard attack patterns, he ordered his pilots to fly directly at the enemy ships, ignoring defensive fire. The harvesters calculated that no rational pilot would take such risks. They were wrong. Hayes's fighters crashed through. The enemy formation, firing at point-blank range. 3 harvester ships exploded before they could adapt to the suicidal attack. Hayes lost half his fighters, but he proved that human unpredictability could work. The main battle began when the Harvester fleet reached Mars orbit. Captain Watson's UES Wrath opened fire first, launching fusion torpedoes at the enemy flagship. The massive explosions lit up space like tiny suns, but the Harvester shields absorbed most of the damage. The enemy returned fire immediately. Their weapons were unlike anything humans had seen before. Beams of pure energy that could cut through the strongest armor, projectiles that phased through shields and exploded inside ship hulls. The Harvesters had learned from 27 civilizations, and it showed. The UES Thunder took a direct hit and exploded, killing 2,000 crew members instantly. The UES Storm lost its main engines and began drifting helplessly. Within the first hour of battle, humanity had lost 20 ships. But the human fleet had advantages that the Harvesters did not expect. Oracle and the other ship AIs began digital warfare against enemy computer systems. They sent virus programs and logic bombs through space trying to disrupt Harvester communications. Their network is heavily protected, Oracle reported to Captain Mitchell. But I am finding small gaps in their defenses. Give me time and I can cause some disruption. Dr. Clark discovered something important while analyzing enemy battle patterns. The Harvesters were using tactics from all the civilizations they had conquered, but they were mixing them together in predictable ways. Energy shield techniques from one species, armor strategies from another, weapon patterns from a third. They are fighting like a committee, he explained to Admiral Sullivan over the communication channel. 27 different voices all trying to give orders at once. Jake Morrison coordinated communications between human ships while plasma bolts flew past the Vengeance's bridge windows. The battle was chaos, but organized chaos. Each human captain made independent decisions, creating a pattern that no computer could predict. The turning point came when Captain Mitchell made a desperate choice. The Vengeance was badly damaged, with half its weapons destroyed and hull breaches on multiple decks. But its fusion reactor was still intact, and Mitchell knew how to use it as a weapon. All crew to escape pods, he ordered. I'm taking this ship on a final run. Lisa Parker tried to talk him out of it from her position on Luna Station. Sam, there has to be another way. You don't have to do this. Mitchell smiled grimly as he piloted the massive dreadnought toward the Harvester command ship. Yes, I do. This is what these old ships were built for. Oracle, prepare for manual detonation of the fusion reactor. Captain, this action will result in total destruction of the Vengeance and probable death of anyone remaining aboard. I know. Do it anyway. The Vengeance accelerated toward the enemy flagship, its damaged engines pushing the ship faster than it was designed to go. Harvester weapons focused on the approaching dreadnought, but Mitchell kept flying through the storm of enemy fire. When the Vengeance collided with the Harvester command ship, the explosion could be seen from Earth. The fusion reactor detonated in a ball of nuclear fire that consumed both vessels and damaged a dozen nearby enemy ships. More importantly, it disrupted the Harvester network that controlled their fleet coordination. For 30 seconds, the enemy ships fought as individuals instead of a collective. They made mistakes, fired at wrong targets, and bumped into each other in confusion. Admiral Sullivan seized the opportunity. All ships attack now, hit them while they're confused. The human fleet unleashed everything they had: antimatter torpedoes that could crack moons, gravitational weapons that twisted space itself, biological agents that ate through enemy hull materials like acid. Weapons that had been banned for being too dangerous were now humanity's only hope for survival. Colonel Hayes led the surviving fighters in a final attack on the largest Harvester ship. His pilots flew like madmen, diving through enemy fire with no regard for their own safety. The old soldier's voice crackled over the radio as his fighter exploded against an enemy weapon port. Tell my grandchildren their grandfather died fighting monsters. The battle raged for 6 more hours. Ships on both sides exploded in brilliant flashes of light, space filled with debris and radiation, but slowly, the human fleet began to win. Their unpredictable tactics and willingness to sacrifice everything confused the logical Harvester minds. When the last enemy ship finally exploded, only 140 human vessels remained intact. Half the fleet was gone, along with 50,000 brave souls who had died defending their peaceful civilization. Admiral Sullivan stood in the ruins of Luna Station's command center, looking at the casualty reports. The victory had cost everything, but Earth was safe. The galaxy was safe. Jake Morrison found her there 3 hours later. "Admiral, we're receiving messages from across the galaxy. Other species are asking how we defeated the Harvesters." Sullivan was quiet for a long moment. "Tell them the truth. We remembered how to be monsters when we needed to be. But now we have to decide what kind of people we want to be in peace." The sleeping dragons had awakened and saved the galaxy. But the hardest question remained: could they learn to sleep again?